user research basics. Got it. And yeah, so my part will be mostly about UX design and its basic concepts and definitions. And there's a very special guest today who is Oshima Takeshi from FWD. He is ex of Facebook. So he will walk you through some of his user research projects before from Facebook. So let's get started. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, and you can just unmute yourself and let me know. Otherwise, I'm not good multitasker, so I just miss it out. So please make sure you unmute yourself, or you can even reserve your questions to the end of the session. We have like a 15-minute QA session at the end of the presentation, so don't worry about it. Ask away any questions about UX design. So this is the content that we're gonna cover today. The first thing will be key definitions, perspectives, and what's your take on a great user experience. That will be a bit hands-on session. And more about UX design in depth, like interaction design, examples of a UX and interaction design. And there will be one fun, hands-on design session, not design, but yeah, just a simple exercise. And then we will move on to like user research basics after that. And there will be a project to share out from Oshima Takeshi from FWD. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay, let me just move on. Yeah, so what is the UX design? There are so many different, angles and perspectives. And, I don't know how to explain it myself, because the one thing is that user experience design is something really abstract. It's not tangible, might be visible, but not really like physical. So it's actually very hard to explain, contextualize. The very essence of a UX design, it's very hard to explain. But as of, future PM, you might want to be able to, actually, you can even let other guys know what the user, UX design means, and you should be on top of everything, hopefully. So I hope you will take away these key definitions today from my session. So I Googled it a little bit, and those two things come up. And the first one is like Wikipedia, like very standard kind of definition, which is, I'm just gonna read it. So UX design, it's the process of creating interaction design. So those are the keywords, interaction designs between human users and products or websites. Unlike user interface design, which focuses solely on the design of a computer interface, UX design encompasses all aspects of a user's perceived experience with a product or website, such as its usability, usefulness, desirability, brand perception, and overall performance. It's also an element of the CX customer experience, which encompasses all aspects and the customer experience and interaction with a company. Again, you might have noticed the keyword here is actually interaction, interface, interaction. So we will take a deep dive into those three keywords, usability, usefulness, desirability, a little bit later as well. So let's move on to the second definition by Don Norman, who is like the father of UX design in our industry. So UX, it means all aspects of the user and the user's interaction with the company, the services and products. Pretty similar, right? So I think, again, the keywords is interaction with the system and the human end user and the products, usability, usefulness, and desirability. So let's move on to what other angles we can probably take to understand UX design better. So those are the three keywords, like usability. How is it different from usefulness, for example? So let's take a look at the description over here. So like usability. For a user to discover product functionality and use it, the product must be usable. If the user can't figure out how the product works, or the product is full of bugs, errors, who is gonna rely? I mean, it's not usable, right? So that's usability. And up there, usefulness. If a product helps a user to solve a problem in a better and faster way, or in a cheaper way, or in a more convenient way, then it is useful. Yes, you check the boxes. And the next one is desirability. So when a product is desirable, users are able to enjoy the experience. It's a subjective factor, that even involves very personal experience, aesthetics, and, it's important because it helps users get engaged at the beginning, attracting the users to interact with a product and find its usefulness and usability features. So as you might have noticed, on top of everything here is actually desirability, and it's far more challenging to actually achieve the desirability out of all these components that make what UX design. So let's move on to, so I mean, it's all concepts and, whatever. So, how can I actually relate to the real life, right? So I came up with a real example here, which is Heinz ketchup. I'm not a big fan of ketchup, but just for this, this session. So let's take a look at Heinz ketchup is package design. It has evolved over centuries, from 2000, 1990 something, I don't know, 18 something. So from 19th century up to 21st century, how it has evolved. So when we take a look at these three package designs, the first one, it's like a glass package. Is it useful? I think it is useful enough. And the middle one is like a plastic package. That's also useful. And the third one is like disposable package. That's also useful, right? But when it comes to usability, might be different, like the glass one. I mean, we are all travelers somewhere, we are always on the go. We can't carry around something like a glass. It's like heavyweight, it's not portable. So, you don't like it. It's not usable for you. Probably for me, it neither. And the plastic package, is it usable? I think it's a little more usable than the glass package, but I don't know. Like a disposable one, the next one, it's a little more usable. We use it in McDonald's, whatever. But for me, when it comes to desirability, it's also another question because, I'm environmentally conscious and I don't want use bunch of disposable packages the last design. So I would say when it comes to usability, the middle one is first. But when it comes to desirability, maybe the glass bottle might be the most desirable, design for me as a person, user. So, I mean, everyone has different criteria. You have your own subjective values, whatever. So it's very hard to tell when it comes to desirability. Is it something absolutely desirable or not? I mean, I think it's your own take. So let's take a look at another angle, which is hierarchy of needs. So actually, it's derived from a psychology concept, which is, hierarchy of needs, which is created by Maslow, who is a psychologist back in the days. And he came up with this hierarchy, like a pyramid. So what it says is that at the bottom, there's a physiological needs, that hygienic needs that everyone wants to fulfill. More than anything else, there's a functionality. I mean, in terms of UX design, so we translated it to UX design. So a functionality, the product needs to be functional enough, it needs to be reliable enough and usable enough. But up there, there's another layer of hierarchy, which is proficiency, desirability, again, aesthetics, beauty, whatever, innovative. So on the top layer, most of the products in the world these days, they check all the boxes, the bottom part, physiological needs, functional, useful, I mean, not much error in box. But when it comes to desirability, I actually see not many products they actually address. It's not necessarily desirable for me. So it's a very, very hard to achieve, up there in the hierarchy, which is something personally meaningful, valuable, and desirable for you. So that's gonna be the mission for you guys, future PMs. How can we make your product design desirable, personally, significant for all the users that you have in mind? So yeah, please try to remember so you can actually use it for your intellectual conversation with UX designers in the future. So at this point, probably you might want to imagine, what will be the product that comes to your mind? For me, it's iPod, So I have a bunch of earphones, but I never use it these days. For me, I mean, it's useful, it's usable, but desirability, I like taking a walk and, I like working out. So for me, I don't want it to getting messed up, tangled up. So I always carry the iPad with me, and it's so portable, wireless, and it's so compact. So for me, that's just something desirable. But I mean, it's a usable at the same time. So no complaint about it. But for me, it means a little more valuable than other product designs. So I mean, you check the boxes for yourself and what will be the most significant, a product design value proposition for your future customers, users. So again, back to UX design. So what kind of shapes and forms does the UX come with? Is it something physical? Is it tangible? Might be, but more likely, it might be more likely like digital interfaces, digital touch points, like some kinds of software, like app, screens or website. But yes, physical products. Yeah, there is a certain, UX going on as well, like a car, automobile design, like, Toyota, like door handles and screens, whatever. So it's all about interaction with the system, machine, and the human users, customers. So I mean, there's elements of a UX design in every product and all kinds of products, almost. So it's very hard to tell, these days. How can we define UX design? The boundaries are really getting blurry. Even organization processes like the services, it doesn't come with any forms and shapes, it can be part of a UX design. So it's hard to tell, but a lot of opportunity for you guys and for me as a UX designer, really, yeah, the sky's the ceiling. So yeah, let's take another look at another example, which is Amazon, which is my favorite. Not a big fan, but I'm an active user and I'm just so hooked like Amazon shopping every day. So you might wonder, like there's a tiny, screen and, like Amazon app, but what about others? Like other, like artifact, I mean, the design, affordances, like there's Amazon Locker and there's like Amazon boxes, delivery service, Prime Air, Prime Videos, and there's Echo, voice interface UX. Is it UX? You might want to ask yourself. Well, there's no answer, but I think these days, really, the boundaries are getting blurry. And we see it as part of a user experience, as well as like a customer experience, So UX can be part of a customer experience, and the customer experience can also vice versa. They contribute to each other. So like Amazon Locker might be a little more like a CX side, but it can also be user experience because there's definitely, interface with the machine, the thing, and the you as a user. And there's definitely something, relationship interaction going on between those like design affordances. So Amazon example, and yeah, so let's move on to like, so maybe I talk too much and yeah, maybe it's a time to actually, get back to your example, like try to think about, what kind of a UX design do you enjoy these days? What kind of app or web design, doesn't matter. Even just like a tiny, I don't know, like Apple Music or anything that like the app or services that you enjoy these days. So think about digital product that you are so hooked these days and try to think about like how you want to evaluate and contextualize its a UX design in terms of these three, key points up there as a PM. So first one, key features for all users. Like what are the key features like, like a digital payment service, like, Line Pay or PayPay, what are those key features? Try to come up with like, maybe you can list up like, and put it down on the Miro board or pen and paper, doesn't matter. And what are the useful, usable features for you out of all these key features for all users? And last but not least, is it any desirable features for you, only something that's personally meaningful? I can't get out of this experience. It's something that's really like a hook, to the product. So let's think about your most favorite UX design these days and the key features, useful, usable, desirable, and desirable features for you as a user. So this is gonna be a little practice together. So we prepared a Miro board for you. So maybe Annie can share the Miro board, the link with the audience. And so I prepared the like ideation board for you here. So you can put it down, the three key points, and we will team up together actually like a pair up, two people in a group, and we'll discuss like, I will give you 5 minutes for this group discussion just so you can pair up. So Annie, do you want to help with the break rooms?
Tenmei has included the board link in the chat if everyone can access it.
Yeah, so Emmy, just a quick question.
Yeah.
So each team of two takes like one set of post-its or
right. Maybe, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you can each use a group of post-its like this one and like group it together. But it's up to you, like, yeah, we pair up together. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So in case someone is too late on the board, then please copy it and have your own. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms now. Is that fine, I mean? Okay, cool.
Okay, so make sure everyone has access to the mirror board and get started. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So we will get back together at 22. I can just call. Oh, by the way, any volunteer you want to share your thoughts, ideation with your partner? Anyone? Like, do we have a Terry here, by the way, Teresa?
Hi, yes.
Yes, why are you here? Yeah, she's a professional UX designer already. I don't know why she's taking this one, but yeah, welcome to the club. And yeah, oh, there is a one volunteer ad, and maybe we can go to Teresa. So let's just start with the Eddie Oz. I don't know what your full name is, but Ed.
Yes, no, Eddie's fine. Yep.
Yeah, do you mind sharing? What's
Yeah,
your
sure.
favorite UX?
So actually, yeah, I was speaking with Ara before, and our favorite UX is on Spotify's lyrics capability. So because here in Japan there is plenty of karaoke places, but unfortunately they're a little bit pricey sometimes. So Spotify has lyrics on there, so we can just stay at home and sing along. So which is great.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure everyone knows the Spotify, but what particular interface or UX do you like about it? Like any like interaction design that you can think of? Like or any UI design like a font to style or screen transition or anything that's a UX.
Actually, yeah. Ara, did you also want to chime in?
Actually, I don't know how to answer to that. I think I just really like the lyric feature because it's quite interesting
Yeah.
and quite different than other like music platform. And I really like that it changes like the colors and the fonts. Like the font is the same for each songs, but the color is different from the other, so it kind of like built the vibe maybe. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Eddie and Ara. That's Ara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but yeah. So thank you. I think you guys. I mean, that's great, but I can hear it's like a PM perspective because we don't go for features, for UX designers. We go for like interaction design, UI, user experience, user flow, user journey, that kind of, analysis. I think it's interesting to hear feature first. That's the first word that I hear. So might be a little bit different perspective. Actually, I'm learning from you guys. So yeah, thanks for sharing. Spotify, yes. And we wanna, maybe I can go to like Terry. And after Terry, we can go back to Aaron. And yeah, okay, Terry, you wanna share?
Yes, so Salome and I actually also picked Spotify. We really vibed on the fact that we are able to block artists that we don't want to listen to, even though they're really great artists. We think that sometimes ethically we just can't like them, and so that feature of being able to block them when they're in any songs or featured in any songs, we really love that.
Thank you, Terry. Do you think, how is it different from like other like Apple Music or other music platforms? Any differentiator that only Spotify can,
Yeah, I don't actually use Apple Music, but the short time I did use it, I was not able to block the artist, but I have to say that was like 5 years ago. Any users now, do they block artists, or is it, anybody know? I don't see it. Yeah, so I think that's something that I was really I didn't know Spotify was able to do that until later, like earlier this year, and I think that was like a huge differentiator.
Yeah, that's interesting. So
I-
I think
can I-
that sounds like a tiny feature, but that's a huge differentiator, as you said. So something that's desirable for you might be a game changer, for users. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And Eddie,
Can I add
Aaron,
to what
yeah, go
Terry and
ahead.
I were discussing? So I
Yeah.
was in the same group with Terry, and someone mentioned it on chat. Something that Spotify has that's unique is Spotify Wrapped. So at the end of the year, it summarizes all the listens that you've had and gives your top 5 podcasts, your top 5 artists, your top 5 genres. And that's really unique to Spotify and not Apple. Sorry, no on social media. At the end of the year, like Apple users get annoyed with Spotify users sharing their Spotify Wrapped. They're like, oh, here they come. So yeah, I think that's really unique to Spotify.
Yeah, that's interesting. For some reason, I don't know much of Spotify in Japan. Might have to do with Japanese, user. Like I don't know, yeah, demographics. But yeah, let's get into the interaction design a little bit later. Thank you for sharing. And we have Aaron. Is another Aaron.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
First, I just had a quick question. Jacob and I chose two different products. Is that okay? I noticed some people were.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess maybe Jacob, sorry if I thrust you in. But so the feature that or the service, the product that I like, and I'm trying to think of it from a UX perspective, is SBI Net Bank, which is
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a totally
Yeah.
internet bank that I just signed up for. And one of the things I was I guess I really like there is, number one, from a UX standpoint, once you open the app, it uses face unlock and it just feels modern, unlike virtually every other Japanese bank, right? I mean, SMBC is okay, but I had Shinsei Bank. I don't know if any of you have used Shinsei because it has English support, but the website looks like 20 years old. So the modern features such as the face authentication, when you open it, there are all your buttons are right there. Your balance is also there. And one last thing, which this might be a feature, is you can set up to 10 separate goal accounts, which I thought was really cool because in Japan, due to money laundering, I think you can't have more than 2 banks. And so this will, sometimes you want to save money for emergency fund or a car or something like that. And I think it's really cool because you can set it to auto fill to those different goal accounts. And it'll show you on a bar graph, percentage filled, when you will fill it and stuff like that. And I just think the whole experience is so great that I was telling everyone about it. Much better than any Japanese bank I've used. So that's
yeah, you have such a UX mindset. You already contextualized all the features and user experience design. So yeah, that's great. So did you say SBI Bank, right?
SBI Net Ginko, SBI Net Bank. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I know some UX designers in SBI Ginko, and there's a huge digital transformation going on. So there's some nice revamp kind of, design going on. At the other pages, some other pages still in progress. So you see the interesting mix and match kind of, mumbo jumbo going on there. So yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I mean, digital payment and the banking, insurance like a MetLife, what I work, I mean, yeah, huge transformation going on there. So we have another Shiriza. Is it?
Thanks.
So you'll be the last person to share.
All
and
right.
we'll move on.
I want to
Yeah.
share about FigJam. I'm not sure, maybe no one have heard about this. It's actually a mirror competitor. It's created by Figma, which is, I think, UX designer already using. What I love using FigJam when compared by Miro is that it's a lot lighter. So when I'm using my laptop, Miro sometimes is very laggy because it's heavy. But then I think FigJam is more light and it's easier to use and it's a lot simpler. I guess when I first on board FigJam, it's a little bit, it's more easier for me to use that when compared to use the Miro when I need more time to learn about the feature. And the third feature that I want to share is of course the community-driven feature. So everyone can actually build tools or features into the FigJam environment. So I think that's also very cool that everyone collaborates there.
Yeah, maybe there is a better compatibility with the Figma other tools, maybe design software compared to Miro. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing. So you have a really good point here because like ecosystem, I mean, they try to like build and scale, platforms from Figma. Now it's like a design collaboration tool like Miro board. So it's part of the ecosystem, which Miro doesn't have actually. It's just like, like like a workshop kind of share out board, but there's not much like design feature per se. So yeah, thanks for sharing. We can go on and but yeah, unfortunately we have some limited amount of time and also a lot to cover today. So let me put my slide back and move on. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, nice feature UX design analysis here. We will get back to interaction design a little bit later, but yeah, so this, UX design so far, you grasped the key like concepts, but one of the ways that we can understand it a little bit better is to see what are the ingredients that actually make up user experience design. So interaction design is a huge part of what makes a user experience design. So let's take a look at what interaction design means then. Probably Terry knows everything about it, but it's a primer, just basic. So yeah, I will just walk you through there. And so yeah, the key principles, interaction design is the discipline of creating products that behave more like people. There's a certain interaction to it for every kind of relationship, like between machine and human, like a human user. So let's hear what he has to say, like a design leader, and try to get his perspective.
There's a lot of ways that you can explain interaction design. Most of them that I've seen online are really.
Maybe we can move on to YouTube.
So there's a lot of ways that you can explain interaction design. Most of them that I've seen online are really strange and don't really get to the point of what it is. The way I like to explain it is, so imagine you're going to a supermarket, you're going shopping. And then as you walk up to the entrance of the supermarket, someone stops you and says, "Thank you for coming to Trader Joe's. Before you can come in, can I please have your name, address, email, and permission to send you notifications on your phone?" How would you feel, right? That would be kind of awkward, right? And yet, this is what we see online over and over again. We see apps that do things in an order that you would not have if you're in a conversation with a real person. So if you look up interaction design, interaction, the word interaction in the dictionary, the definition is reciprocal action or influence, right? So there's an ongoing interaction between the parties, right? I talk to Daniel, Daniel talks back to me, right? And then through that back and forth, a relationship is formed, right? Over time. So it's this reciprocal influence, and through interactions, we build relationships. But it goes further than just with individuals. You can have this type of relationship with your pets, with your favorite stuffed animal, or like your favorite blanket, like in Charlie Brown, that Linus blanket, or even with abstract objects like a rectangular screen that you carry in your pocket all the time, right? So, through these interactions, we build relationships. So what this means is that these products you're designing, they're having a conversation with the people you are designing for, right? Because there's this back and forth. They tap something on there and it does something back, right? There's this back and forth.
Yeah, so that's the keyword, back and forth conversation, and the reciprocal, interaction, relationship. Actually, when you start using, when you getting like there's an interface and digital touch point, you actually start building relationship with the UX design machine, I don't know, like the system side. So it's more than just getting things done. It's actually you are building that relationship, and interaction design is that important. And this is what makes a UX design compared to other just the visual, just the design. So let's take a look at in depth a little bit, like what the kind of metaphors maybe we can take to understand it better. So the way that I see is like there's a mart and department store, and there's like a bunch of products on the product shelves, and it's like a content and maybe data information in a website. So there's a bunch of products on the product shelves. You don't know what to pick out from here, So what you're looking for along the path, that's more like information architecture, like, someone is there to organize all the stuff, put it in order. And as a user, you get lost sometimes. You don't know how to navigate through those paths. But, because of this nice interaction design, you learn how to navigate through the path, and you get around and how, learn how to get things done. So, I mean, it's that important. Interaction design, by building the path for the user, you build the potential for building relationship with the system and the user, you as a human. So again, interaction design, that's a big part of UX design, and it focuses on the design of behavior of a person's interaction with a digital interface. So let's move on to another metaphor, like, so back in the days, like a gallery, museum, I mean, there's a lot of learning and, inspiring, for sure. But unfortunately, is there any kind of interaction going on, conversation, like with the, I don't know, painters back in the 18th century? Might be, but that's more like imagination, not really much a relationship going on there, not much conversation. It's more like a one-way propaganda from the author to the audience. But two-way relationship, the differentiator is that actually, as you go along the path, you have a chance to alter the interface as well. You conversate with all the staff on the floor, and you pick out the product from the shelves, and maybe you clean up, like mess it up, I don't know, like there's some kind of a potential for further relationship, conversation, interaction. So two-way relationship. So that's what makes a design different from other, like web design, for example. So let's take a look at another, like web 1.0 back in 1998. It was pretty much like a static one-way propaganda. They throw out a bunch of information at you, but there's not much room for you to build that relationship with the system side, really one way. But like app design in 21st century nowadays, there's a lot of interaction. I mean, it consists with a two-way kind of reciprocal feedback. So you put in some kind of like data and the personal info, and the system gets back to you with some kind of response, and so two-way relationship again. So basic interactivity, it comes down to this, like, are you able to create? Are you able to read, update, and delete? Like a CRUD, these are the 4 basic functions of like a computer, system. So back in the days, again, you are able to view and read it, but not able to get things done, really, not two-way. Like these days, with app design, for example, create, read, update, and delete. It's a two-way interaction. So that's what makes UX design a UX design. Web designer, there's a lot of web designers in Japan, but unfortunately, very significant shortage of UX designers, because in Japan, mostly UX design is viewed something like a web design, like a static design, but try to break out of the mold. But still, I think there's a huge shortage of good UX designers in Japan. So unless we understand this kind of reciprocal interaction between the system and the human user, well, I don't know the future. Well, a lot of opportunity, but do we need a web designer? Not so much these days, because we have a WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly. Do we need a code, low code or no code? It actually lets you build a website. So, we need a UX designers who understand both the sides. So some of the examples of a UX and interaction design, let's take a look at another example and see how you can define user experience design means. It might be something digital, might not be something digital. So let's take a look at another example.
But this location is the first with its own robot restaurant too.
Robots are actually delivering pretty much all the food.
That's where I'll end up after the shopping experience. The Hema store is growing rapidly in China, opening 65 locations in 1 year. There's 3 pillars to its strategy, serving as a place to shop in person, a distribution center for online orders, and the restaurant. It's hoping to define what the future of retail will look like. While I'm checking this out, I might as well grab a basket.
See what interests me. First thing I noticed is the pricing system. Every price tag has a barcode in which you can use the Hema app to scan the barcode and then see the price of the item online. You can also see reviews of that product. What's also fascinating is that even though these price tags look like they were printouts, it's actually a special technology that can change the price in real time.
And that's not all. It even tells you when it was delivered to the store and where it came from. You can also see a scan of a government certificate proving, for instance, if it was organic. It also shows delivery options if you decide not to buy it in store.
I just saw a lady who works for the store and she was fulfilling an online order. So using her scanner, she had a bag, she would pick the products. And then what was really crazy is instead of walking across the store to get it where it needs to go, she put it on a conveyor belt, which then took it to the ceiling, to the back area where then it will then go out for delivery. So essentially now you're talking about not only a retail store, but also a distribution center. And if you live within 3 kilometers of a hummus store, you can have delivery of your groceries within 30 minutes. You see a lot of employees walking around the store, fulfilling orders. I understand how it can maximize efficiency of sourcing, but it creates for a somewhat chaotic experience too when you have a lot of people running around. A lot of sample stations throughout the store and in paper, any of that. In fact, you really have no interaction with a staff member. And then from there, the robots deliver your food and you've already paid all within the same app.
Alibaba leveraged its existing technology from the e-commerce automated warehouses to power these new robot restaurants.
It's really an entire ecosystem of robots that are working together pretty well. I have yet to see a collision.
Even the tablet at the table, in a way, is obsolete.
The only thing the tablet can really do is entertain you. There's games, which your phone probably has. You can call for a server if you need. You can use the tablet for that. And then there's also a demo of how the robots work as well.
The robots can't handle everything, though. For complicated dishes like soups, that'll require a human server.
Yeah, so this is the fun part actually. Well, it's all about like a customer experience that's enabled by digital interfaces, whatever. But all of a sudden, there's a human presence, like not everything can be handled by machine. There's definitely some human intervention, which is very interesting to me. So we live in a very interesting era, actually. I mean, it's all about user experience, but actually there needs to be human assistant there. So a lot of the interesting topics in Japan in the UX industry is actually hybrid experience. Like there needs to be human sales people, and there needs to be some like a digital interface platforms, but also constantly the humans are the triggers. Actually, they can guide you through to the the digital interfaces. So which is very interesting, unique theme. But I don't know how much a human intervention will be there in the future. Maybe 5 years it might disappear, but yeah, we'll see. So anyways, the reason that I really want to share with you this this video clip is actually an example from China. And I mean, it's a really groundbreaking experience. Like, everything is like designed in a way that really caters to every single need that you might have. And, like the hierarchy of needs, like if you remember that, on top of it, desirability, they are actually looking and going for it. It's not about usability, functionality, as you can say, like it's like entertainment. Even community building with inviting a bunch of friends, relatives, families, you can have a birthday party, whatever. So I mean, it's a whole experience that's all about desirability. So very interesting example that I
am in Shanghai visiting
share with you. Let's move on to the next slide. And what do we have here? Okay, so another example is like another interaction design. Probably you might have used this Sephora app. Some artificial intelligence with like a virtual makeup kind of experience. I'm gonna just stop here, but it's very interesting example again about how, the user actually interact with this app, the digital interface. So I haven't used this app myself, but I think it's really all about interaction design. And do we have any still here? Any?
Yeah.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, so have you used any app like this, like a virtual makeup or, Photoshop, whatever?
No, I haven't. I think it's more towards like Western countries. I haven't used any of it in Japan. Let me know if I'm wrong.
Yeah, okay. And what do you think the role of UX designers will be in, for digital natives like you guys? I don't know. Are you digital native? Maybe.
Yes, I'm a Gen Z.
Do you think that there's a still role for UX designers in the future?
Yeah, I believe so. And I strongly believe that there is and should be a growing demand and need for UX designer. Because being a Gen Z by myself, like I grew up with digital products, like with my iPads and my screens and my phone. So it's like a given for me to be able to use these digital products without asking it too much. But as you said from before, product now is not only about functionality and usability, but also
right.
about desirability and inclusiveness. And I think that's where UX designer role is really important. And that's when they should be coming in and explore what are these Generation Z feeling and why they're feeling so, and working with like PMs and bringing those products and features that serve and really pushing for that creativity and entertainment aspects to it.
Yay, that's like the best answer,
Yeah, I have
Okay.
something to add, by the way,
Yeah,
Emi.
sure, go ahead. Yeah.
I think one reason why UX designers are like always needed is because interface keeps changing, right? So right now we have phones, but 20 years ago there was only maybe computers. Maybe 20 years later we don't need phone anymore. Everything's done through the Elon Musk Neuralink or something like that. So as it keeps changing, and we are going to get older, we are going to become boomers as well. So we'll need people to design for us as we can't keep up with all the technology. So yeah, I definitely think it's a job that's not going anywhere at all, for sure.
Oh, so for PM like you, so you feel that the pace of a change is too hectic, even for PMs like you.
Yeah, I would say so. Like every day something new is coming in, and we have to keep adapting to all the new interface or the new technologies that keep coming in. So for example, just for example, from the travel industry now, like VR is something that a lot of people are looking into, to go into the next level of traveling virtually or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, so definitely have to stay on top of that somehow.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Wow. Yeah, it's great to hear, like a voice from the real PM. You were already seasoned PM, I guess. But as you can tell, so you just heard the PMs, future PMs. So it's a lot of studying, learning, really. So actually, as a UX designer myself, I sometimes find like, might have been a mistake that I chose this career path, because the technology just keeps evolving a lot. So, well, one thing that used to be something like a trendy and useful, like 2 years ago, it doesn't exist anymore even. So constantly you have to keep up with, changing technology, which might be downside to being a UX designer, also PM as well, because you needed to be on top of everything and even give directions to UX designers. So not easy. So yeah, so let's take a look at one more final example, and we will move on to some other parts of sorry, I have a sore throat today, but I'm just trying my best. And so yeah, the final thing will be so Google Daydream, like a virtual experience. And let's, when you watch this video clip, try to think about like what will be the actual digital, interface with the human and system, what this will be the enabler, that can help, build this kind of relationship with the system side. So yeah, try to imagine.
Daydream rather tends to get really, really hot. And even though you have these padded and breathable pieces of fabric over on the front, I could kind of feel the heat emanating from the top of the phone here, or rather the top of the headset from the side of the phone. But without any further ado, we are going to jump right into the VR world. Ow. But once you have it on, then you can go ahead and grab the controller here. So there is a trackpad, or rather touchpad at the top with a couple of buttons underneath, and the touchpad can be pushed down in order to interact with parts of the world. Now, one of the best parts about this is if you point forward and you hold the home button, which is the bottom button, you can recenter the screen, and it tells you that. That's something that other VR headsets kind of struggle with. If the gyroscope or whatever it uses in order to spatially put you into the VR world kind of gets off kilter, sometimes it doesn't give you an option. Especially at the highest resolution, it will look quite good through this phone, and the Quad HD display does a great job of doing that. Let's go to the Taj Mahal. So this is Street View. Now, essentially Street View just is Street View, and even in VR, it's a lot of the same thing, except it gives you immersion through a 360 photo. Now, Street View will just allow me to, let's go ahead and play, I won't really play the slideshow. I'm just gonna move using the controller, as you can see here. I'm going to move to different portions of the Taj Mahal, and it's right in front of me in gorgeous, gorgeous resolution. It looks very nice. The quality of Daydream is actually something that we want to highlight here. But yeah, this is Street View. And if I were to go to particular dots on the field, I will be able to move over here.
Yeah, let's post the video here. And Tammei again, may I ask, so how is it close to real, Taj Mahal? Is it real or yeah?
Yeah,
What do you think
it's
about this experience then?
so you mean like VR or real?
Yeah, VR here. Does it really represent the real thing, or how real is the experience? Like
So
the
I
view.
think, yeah, so I think what we are seeing is still 2D, but if you were wearing the VR goggles, I think you would actually feel like you were in that like place, and you could see your surroundings as well. So visually you do feel you are there. And I think in the future,
Yeah.
sorry?
It's illusion.
Yeah. But I think in the future, if we can replicate things like smell, feeling, sounds,
Exactly. Yeah.
you could really feel like you're there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you can
Mm.
see, is there physical interface? Might be with the goggle and your, skin, but when it comes to real interface, the enabler, the controller, actually, I don't know where's the controller is. Does it exist, or I don't know, it's just something airy. So for me, that's gonna be another like dimension of a user experience design that's coming up. Which is interesting. I haven't actually worked anything like a virtual reality in my UX career. It's more like conventional, the digital touch points like web and app. But interestingly, like Tammei mentioned, like a smell, aroma, sound, and things like that. And how can we actually design it? That's the era of a UX design. I worked on the one interactive voice response project before, like a voice-based interface. But it's actually very, very tough because I don't know how to actually verbalize, what I see here. So I don't know how to like contextualize in words, but my stakeholders, they don't have any experience with voice, whatever. So they are listening to me there, but how can I really express it? So I think that kind of a communication issues is something coming up for PMs like you, if you have to do like a voice design, like a smell design, some kind of a virtual reality design in the future, how you are going to actually verbalize, express in words, that will be also a challenge, something that doesn't exist. Okay, so let's move on to another section, and let me move. I think you guys are pretty good with design thinking by now after the session last week. So let me move on to user research. But before we do that, let's take a look at one example. Actually, I because in terms of interaction design, I wanted to do one quick exercise with you. So let me download my mirror board, and so here I try to put in one website example, which is I'm a big fan of like a Taikanyama. There's a Tsutaya bookstore and nice restaurants and bars. But looking at their website, actually, Jesus, it really lets me down. Look at the website. It's like a newspaper, magazine. It's not an experience. Daikanyana, a place full of vibes and, like, wow, it doesn't really represent the, experience there. So it's pretty much a lot of a web design, in Japan and some other countries, I don't know, it's just still very like aesthetic kind of, not much interactivity there. So as a future PM, what you're going to do today as an exercise is that you're going to transform this aesthetic web page into a form of user experience. It's up to you how you want to do it. You can add music to it, even like a Spotify kind of a music selector, I don't know. Or you can make like a 3D kind of a map out of this feature, which is very static pixelated kind of image. Or you can do like a virtual interview, video clip over here, or some kind of interactive content, nice conversational kind of feature. It's up to you. Even you can do like a sharing, like a community building kind of feature. I don't know, it's really up to you, but you see the issue here is actually it's not user experience. So let's do a quick exercise. So out of this Daikanyama site web page, how are you going to transform it into a user experience that's interactive design, interactive feature, something stimulating, so let's do this exercise. It's not teamwork, so you can just you can go back to your Miro board again, the same link and everything. So go back to Miro board and get started, please, with your first thing. You might want to do like what kind of content is there, feature content analysis as a PM. And that's what you PMs are really good at, like the feature analysis, prioritization. And after the feature analysis, you might want to dive into like design ideation. How do you want to improve the design or even redesign from scratch? It's up to you. Yeah. So I will give you 10 minutes for this quick design ideation. Please bring some kind of, I don't know, life to this website. Make it user experience. I will give you 10 minutes, okay? So let's get back together at 8:12, 10 minutes from now. So I will give you 10 minutes and please enjoy the experience. So there's a web page URL over here if you want to revisit. And also there's like a screenshot over here you can use. Yeah, okay, let's get back together in 10 minutes. Enjoy.
Yeah, so no breakout rooms needed, right, Emi?
No breakout rooms.
All right. So yeah, feel free to
10
mute
minutes.
your video if needed. And yeah, we'll catch you in 10 minutes.
So, Hanmei, you have a very, very huge competitor here. I mean, he's like a AI, like a PM or something. I mean, he's already finished all the analysis content and, features, and he's doing his own like design. So yeah, I'm so impressed. Thank you for sharing. And
you.
yeah, it's great to hear actually from future PMs, some design kind of, the sentiment from you as well. So yeah, something creative, it always goes a long way, So yeah, let's go to like, so we can only have like 2 more presenters. So maybe, so next person, not Prawi.
TK, yeah. We can
Sorry.
call TK.
And then the next person will be Yuki. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I may share the screen. So I mean for my it's maybe a short one, but yeah, I think like to navigate in these pages, we just like click here and click here, and I think it's like it's not so comfortable to find what I want to find to go to the part I want to go. So maybe we can like move this part as a sidebar maybe here. Yeah, so like if we here and we can like go to another part like more easily. And moreover, like in this is a page for a place, so we may like I think we should move like this part it on the top because people may want to know, okay, first where it is and if it open now. So like other than the time like this, we may add like, okay, it's open now. The text is open now up like it here. And if it closed now, so just that it's closed now. So it can make more like user like more understand something like that. That's mine. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you have a good analytical mindset. So more on the rather than design suggestions, I think your point is more like the feature as is analysis, which is also it's like a first step toward actually UX design proposal. So yeah, being able to understand and contextualize what are the current pain points. That's really the first step. So probably Teresa knows everything, has the suggestions for you, but yeah, we have some UX designer, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I don't want to go into details and ask you some questions, but yeah, I'd rather have more presenters than just me keep talking. So let's go to Miyuki. Do you have anything you want to share? Thank you. Wow, actual, we have some images there and the design suggestions.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I wanted to add 3 sections to the website. The first one is the photo section that you can upload. Like the system collects all the users' photos from the SNS, and it changes every 1 or 3 hours. And the first thing that I felt was that the photo on the top was too boring. So I want it to be more responsive rather than static. And the second section is the 1 minute read article and quote of the day. It pops up unexpectedly. I guess the people who visit this site would be some sophisticated people. So they would like some kind of information that keeps you learning, right? So I thought something that tiny little bit would be fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, the shop sells books. So I thought it would be interesting if they show some books that just being bought online, so that both people who live close there and the people like me who doesn't live near the location, so that they cannot go there, but you can enjoy the website. So that's 3 sections that I want to add.
Wow, that's a pretty creative. Like it's like Airbnb or TripAdvisor. This hotel room having this book. In 5. Wow, that's a kind of new feature that I haven't seen for bookstores. So I guess so. Rather than the volume of books, like most bought books, you want to see like the real time purchase over there. So might be it might be more interactive that way, like a real time update.
Yeah.
And also the user endorsement and interview storytelling going on. That's one of the nice, feature creation, which is really nice. Yeah. I think there's a more personal story. I feel engaged in it more rather than just a bunch of usability and features, I like this kind of content personally. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And yay. Thank you. And last person, sorry, Ara, we want to have you as well, but we need to move on as well. So let's go to Alisa. Alisa, last person.
Hello, sorry. I'm gonna make this like super short. I apologize. Probably just gonna focus on like the recommendations. But in my hindsight, I think there were obviously I think Riza did a really good like content analysis for that one, so I'll just skip right through it. But these are like some of the recommendations I had, but the ones I think that are particularly like is the AR map, because I do notice that the T-site buildings is actually, I believe it's three separate ones, and it's like in the flow. like the one in Daegangyam, I believe. And it one other thing that perhaps like would help with that is like if there's like an AR map in the website later on, or whether it's like in a separate page or anything of the sort, to have probably like a guide to for a certain point of the exit or the entry points to go into the desired store. That's I think one idea I had, and also a monthly calendar board events, because there's also like a list of events happening. I thought it'd be more interactive to have like maybe what's happening in a monthly event, and if you click on a date, like oh, it pops up. There's like a bit more appealing in that sense. But, and another thing that I would like was like probably is about like contents are related, but it's like book recommendations depending on your favorite tea site, because it's a lot of different places, like depending on the stores you go to or things like that, or any of the sales deals are happening like as a particular how would you say, like a product page, if anything, and also a search bar. I think that's definitely important if whether you're looking for a place or things like that. So yeah, I think that's just roughly about the ideas I had. So just to to wrap things up. So yeah.
Yay, thank you for sharing. Yeah, you got like some of the keywords like AR, augmented reality, and a machine learning, maybe like what kind of books, recommendations based on your last purchase and things like that. Yeah, like Amazon type of a recommendation is a way to go for UX design. So that's great. Also nice, information architecture you have in mind. Like I would definitely erase tax refund guide as well. So I was looking at it. So you got it. So yeah, you're on the spot. Yeah. So thanks for sharing. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's the pain point. Anyone else who has a questions for these presenters? Any feedback or otherwise we will move on. We have a limited amount of time again. So yeah, let me share back my screen and move on. So yeah, go back to the slides. Okay, so yay, it was fun session. I'd rather have like 2 hours over this like design ideation. I'm the one who actually really enjoys more than anyone else here when it comes to design ideation. But we have a user research. Unfortunately, it's a little bit, not really creative, but it does contribute a lot to creative, user-centric design. So we'll have to learn how to do it. As a PM as well, you will have to actually work with, UX designers on top of everything, give it directions, and even sometimes challenge and argue with the UX designers. What are you going to do? You need it to be data driven, and I'm sure that you have another session like like data analytics and like data driven like kind of subjects. So yeah, so how can we actually use data for user risk, like for doing user UX design? So that's the thing. But rather than me just keep on talking, I will just try to grasp, pick out the key pointers, and we'll move on to the case study with Takeshi Oshima from FWD X Facebook. So yeah, so user research basics. Why do we need a user research? Because we believe we know everything. Like me, like a few days ago, I was so sure the purple works best. It catches your fancy and everything on my website. But I just realized that, to my humility, I had to take it all down, really delete everything, on the spot. So because, usability test of findings, it was telling me otherwise, really. People have such and such resistance. I don't know, depends on the age group as well. But most of the user test participants, they said NG for purple color is too eye-catching and blah, blah. So, something that you are going to keep discovering as a UX designer. And as a PM who works with, UX designers, you needed to stay humble, constantly try to listen what your users say rather than what your gut feelings say. So be wary of assumptions. So I see that PMs, I work with them on a daily basis. I have a good friends of PM, but, I noticed they do love Jira tickets, and feature analysis, like Ideation, whatever, like Asana, project product management tools. Yes, it's important, using Jira tickets, but first of all, we need to get back to basics. What are the users like? What's their mental model is like, behaviors, and can we actually, build a persona who should be our target, users, and what will be the journey like for them? So try to, get back to basics always. The basics here is, of course, your users, who the users will be. First, you need to understand who the users will be, or in parallel, yeah, you can raise a Jira tickets, whatever feature prioritization, but make sure you understand the user. Otherwise, you have everything, but you don't have any essence in the product. So please be mindful that user, it should be, all about the user experience. Again, so why? It's because the data tells us, like a lot of commercial like apps, like 90% or something, it's just destined to failure, product decommissioning, because they don't do much user research. They don't care, just release and deploy, keep, updating it. But 99%, believe me, it's actually data. They just get decommissioned, in a year or so. So yeah, you don't want to be like one of those, like, PMs. So habits, behaviors, and attitudes, it's easy to actually see what is going on through like numeric data, quantitative data, but actually it's harder to understand why they behave that way. What are the underlying motivations and the reasons, incentives that keep people moving in that direction? And what makes people not like purple color, for example. That's like a trauma for me. But anyways, try to understand why, and the impact will be exponential. If you just see what, you can just try to fix, like a quick fix, but don't move on. But if you understand why, you can really fix the root problem and move on. So it's the impact can be even, better. So try to understand why always. And I'm sure that, most of you guys understand what's a qualitative or quantitative research method. So like a qualitative user interview, focus groups, those are the most representative qualitative research method. And for quantitative, like a survey, eye tracking and app, like usage analytics, I have used like half of this user research methods, but I have to tell you that not every method, you don't want to be like a research ninja. You want to focus on what really works best for you. And from my experience, user interviews and the survey, maybe some eye tracking, depending on the context, and observation, field study, those kind of things, A/B testing sometimes. So, try to make it like your weapon, like your in your toolkit, so you can pull out. But you don't have to have all the research methods, like becoming research ninja. Don't be like that. You want to focus and really be selective about to be a good UX researcher. And yeah, of course, like, PM in the future. So data and insights, like data, we deal with the data on a daily basis, like usage data, like a bounce off and, ID ranges, whatever. So, time spent on page, but the data, it probably tell you what is happening. Again, it doesn't really tell you why that is happening. So in order to learn why, you need to go deeper, investigate, and talk with your users, and try to get insight why they behave that way. And, try to actually put it into your like design iteration for your next sprints, and people love insight. They want to look at data, but at the end of the day, they want you to actually digest data so they can actually, they're looking for insight from you. So this is the actually what they're looking for in Scrum teams actually. So a lot of work, analysis, data, reporting, presentation you have to deal with. So yeah, I think that's really the key when it comes to like a user research and research methods. So like a quantitative, qualitative, as like would be PM, beginning PM, you can maybe just start with the user interviews, maybe usage analytics like Adobe or Google, and maybe survey. In the future, eye tracking, those are the key methods for me in my case, really. So yeah, you want to check out other resources to go like maybe a little bit in depth about what are the word of user research is another dimension. We don't want to go into detail for like everything. So we will move on. And last but not least will be really fun, research share out session by Oshima from FWD Japan. He's the head of CX at FWD, and it was XF, Facebook. And he used to be like a researcher in the Kantar, one of the, the largest research companies. So yeah, Oshima has a lot of cases to bring to the table from Japan. So Oshima, are you ready to share?
I am ready. Yeah, can I share my
Yes,
screen?
please.
I mean, I can
Yeah,
go
of
with yours.
course.
It's just I like to have control over my presentation. Thank
Yes,
you.
of course.
Thank you. Let me find it first. Right. Right, hang on a sec. Bugger. Right, are you seeing the screen now?
Yeah,
I guess
see
that's
your
a yes.
screen. Tonkatsu.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's katsukade, isn't it? Right. So hello everyone. It's lovely to meet you, and I hope you're having a wonderful time. I'm Osh, as Emi just presented, and I'm partnering her today to share a bit of user experience that I've done. All right. So I currently work for a Hong Kong-based insurance provider called FWD, just to give you a bit about sort of my background and the context. And I lead the CX practice, and the work spans across all the customer touch points, and it involves listening to our customers to create seamless journeys and better user experience. And UX, as you can imagine, is a critical part of all of that as we try and strive to be the best in class CX in the industry. It makes me feel very old. I've been in consumer research for 20 years now, and working across various multinationals. And today, I had an option to talk about real key insight study that I did for Nissan. Very it's automotive. Probably I thought it's better, and I spoke with Emi about this, and that we talk about Facebook. Now, obviously, as Emi mentioned earlier, something we did two years ago don't exist. I really wonder, how many of you here uses Facebook? But I thought I'd talk about this because it's an interesting one. I joined the company in 2014 as the head of marketing science, when there were just under 40 people in the Japan office. And the role was predominantly measuring ad effectiveness on Facebook and helping advertisers get better return on their investment on the platform. I'm not going to bore you with measurement stories and narratives today, but I'm going to talk about user research that I worked on, and then some different product development approaches that I came across while I was at Facebook. You might have heard or seen some of these. These are posters that were stuck on the walls of Facebook offices to sort of really, rub in that company attitude. And I think they've done it really well. They've not just stuck it on the wall, they're really stuck in me as well, even now. And they even made a swag, as you can see, right? Emi might laugh at this because she's commented on several occasions when I sort of turned up in my Facebook and Instagram t-shirts. But this is my, my favorite swag from Facebook. Now, back then, we didn't have any engineers in Japan, and everything was built in the US to scale globally, right? So I think a lot of the UX research was done in the US, none in Japan. And I think so everything was like done in the US to scale globally. So any request that came from Japan, the engineers in the US had no incentive to work on because it doesn't scale. It's only for the Japan market, right? So, and I think they probably didn't understand what we were saying because, unless they came to Japan to see it and for them to feel it, I don't think they would have understood it. Now, the good thing is, when Facebook decides to do things, they do things, right? I mean, one of the success for Facebook was it shifted to mobile very early on, right? It was a desktop company, but they shifted to mobile very early on. And they moved a lot of designers and resource to get that done, to become a mobile first company. And that's exactly what happened to Japan. Japan was called out to be one of the 6 special markets, together with Germany, Russia, and some other markets. And Japan was, and I think it still is, the 3rd largest ad market in the world, but it was struggling with low penetration. And that really impacted our ads business. Now, whenever we went to Dentsu and Hakuhodo, we were often challenged. You don't have enough reach. like TV or Yahoo. So a project team was set up, and I partnered with them to understand why and what could be done to drive penetration in Japan. And so you could say the two key actions from this research was, one, how could we fix the product to better engage current users? And then B, how could we acquire new users through communication? And the methodology we used, we organized some focus groups and one-on-one interviews covering heavy users, mild users, and I think we also did lapsed users as well in Osaka and Tokyo. And I think we also supplemented that with some nationwide quant study as well. In the design, in the research design, I insisted that we cover various cities because I thought and I suspected the usage of Facebook would be slightly different between Tokyo and other cities, but also the attitude, the perception of Facebook would be different. And I think it showed in the data that we had. And the team picked Osaka in the end. I think the primary reason was because it's, the second largest city. And if we were to scale, that was important. But I think they also wanted to sort of go there for food, which is also important, I guess. So in this user growth research, so here's some key findings, right? You gotta think like this is like, I don't know, more than 5 years ago, right? So things might be different, but this was the story back then. A lot of people said Line is enough to communicate with friends and families. They didn't understand this concept of loosely connected friends, which Facebook was all about. And quite a few people said, I don't have social life, which is very Japanese, being humble. And even if they did, it was kind of embarrassing to show other people. And there's no way that they would connect with people at work. And some people said it's good to keep up with friends they met overseas during their home stays or study abroad, which is a small proportion of the population. But also, a few people said it's actually good for connecting with friends, old friends from high school and whatnot. And then the biggest issue, I think, for Facebook, that we were challenged is the real identity. Mixi and Twitter were the two key players due to their anonymity. And I think Facebook was really struggling to find its position. And then the playfulness. Facebook was seen to be too businesslike. And it's interesting because Google had the same issue in Japan. And they struggled in winning share over Yahoo. And it's probably quite difficult to imagine this now, but Google was also seen to be dry, businesslike, and bland as compared to Yahoo's cluttered newspaper-like format. So if you think about Google back then, it was kind of a white screen with the logo and the box, right? Which was like completely different from the Yahoo interface. And I actually worked on Google account when I was at Kantar to address this problem. So now I look back, on this Facebook study, but also the Google study, I feel like it was kind of the first wave of foreign apps with a very alien design to the Japanese users, struggling to win the share in the market. And I think that's why local research is so important, right? Now, Emi talked about the hierarchy of needs earlier, but you can see the problem sat outside of it, right? Was the product even relevant in Japan? And I think a lot of these things tell you that it wasn't really addressing the fundamental needs of the Japanese consumers, or it was already being replaced by, someone like Line or whoever. So we had some ideas, that we observed or we heard from the research. And so for heavy users, they open the app in the morning after they got up. And if you think about, and I think that's a real insight, right? If you think about this usage occasion, you could come up with many ideas, like weather was one of them, weather forecast, right? In your area. Train timetable was another thing that came out. But I don't think, weather certainly became available. They developed it, but not the train timetable. They talked about Facebook Messenger stickers. You know, it's not cute and it looked foreign in design. I think some people said, you know, we want cute ones like Hello Kitty. And we also had internal ideas to let, you know, users create their own characters, but that didn't happen. And I think Line did it afterwards. People using Facebook as a news source and information source for their pastimes. Like, I remember, you know, sitting in this interview room in Osaka. I mean, this guy was collecting information for ramen, and another guy, you know, sitting across him was, you know, doing the same thing for soba. So we had this ramen guy and we this soba guy, right? And there was this guy in the middle, you know, you might think he was, you know, doing the same for udon. Not the case. No, he was actually doing a similar thing for owarai. So, you know, there was a lot of user-generated content that was being consumed, but just getting lost in the newsfeed. So there was the findability issue and the usability issue that we needed to address. And then lastly, this thing about playfulness. So quite a few people, as I said, talked of, you know, Facebook being, you know, business-like and pretty cold. But, you know, listening to interviews in Kansai Ben and these guys talking about owarai, it just sparked an idea to do Kansai Ben Facebook, right? Now, you might know that when Facebook was only, you know, available in the US and other countries wanted it, it allowed users to translate its interface. And that's how it got to scale so quickly. And I think for some languages, it only took a few hours. Now, obviously, it's the artificial intelligence that does all of that for you now. But, you know, Facebook also valued preserving minority languages and deliberately worked on those. But I think, you know, I'm not sure, like, how many of you here know that Facebook also had this thing called upside down English and pirate English. And you can check it. And there's actually a bit of fun there, but, you know, just people just didn't know that. But anyway, so with this sort of background that I had about sort of Facebook's attitude towards language, it sort of just, you know, I mean, it was kind of natural. Let's do Kansai Ben, you know, while I was listening to all these interviews. Now, a note on this is that, you know, we actually managed to get the engineers work and to deliver on this Kansai Ben quite quickly, but we also leveraged it through press release, and it got attention on, you know, several websites, but also on, you know, the morning TV shows. So, you know, if you're going to do something new, you know, get your marketing and PR folks to help you, you know, let people know that, because, you know, leverage the occasion, right? Now, shortly after this research, we set up a team, you know, called Japan War Room, which was set up in the headquarters, and we had like a team of smart engineers work on the Japan growth, addressing more sort of the long-term growth issues from the product side. And we had them visit Japan, and, you know, it'd be sort of my go-to place when I went to the UK, not the UK, the headquarters. Now, it's ironic that while they worked really hard to address this growth issue, our user base almost doubled when Instagram was launched. Right? It's kind of ironic, right? So you can just see that the product needs to be relevant, right? Now, having said all of that, I think this was the first of its kind for Facebook outside of the US to listen to local users to fix problems and to get, you know, ideas on what could be done. So to me, it's kind of a milestone project. And I will touch on this in the next page about sort of different approaches that, you know, sat within the company. So I want to conclude with the difference in development approach as I worked on Facebook and Instagram, and I really wonder what you think. So as I said, this research was the first of its kind outside of the US, because Facebook is actually a very ruthlessly data-driven company. And I think you all know that. I mean, everyone loved making their own dashboards with whatever they want to see. And I think it's as agile as you can be, right? I mean, sometimes even like making the company look quite sloppy. You know, the new products and functions were built by looking at usage data. And I think at the base of all that was monetization. You know, how could we make more people use it longer and more often? I'm not sure if you know this function called friends you may know, which is like when you open the app, you know, it says like, do you know this person? Right. And sometimes it's quite annoying, but I mean, I think that is a great example of that, because, you know, as your social graph gets bigger and you've got more posts on your newsfeed from your friends, it's likely that it's going to increase your engagement on the app, right? Now, so at Facebook, you know, teams who made these levels of contributions were called out every week at Mark's Q&A, right? And they would present in front of all the employees of what they'd done and what sort of impact that's made to the business. So the company was really promoting that sort of get things done culture, right? So Facebook was very data driven, but on the other hand, Instagram valued its community, right? I mean, do you know what role the first hire for Instagram Japan was? I mean, can anyone guess? Anyone? You can just shout out. Have a guess.
Photographer.
Good one, good one. We had a bunch of those in the community. Actually, it was actually the community manager. The first hire for Instagram for Japan was community manager. You got it, Terry? Cool, cool.
I did.
Excellent. So she attended Insta meets and mixed with users to see, you know, how they used it, what they used it, you know, what they needed, their issues, and so on. And of course, you know, sure, I mean, the data was also used, but the community was at the core of Instagram since day one, right? When Kevin Systrom made it platform. And when we started to monetize on Instagram, you know, after it was being bought by Facebook and so on, we limited it to one advertiser a day, so not to hinder the user experience. And I remember when we had the Instagram ad launch in Japan, we had such high bar for its creative, right? I mean, it all had to be sort of crafted carefully, you know, and we had to push back on the advertisers. You know, they're paying for it, but we had to push back on the advertisers quite a few times, and we nearly had to delay the launch date. So that's how we seriously, you know, that's how we took the Instagram community seriously. Now, it's not just Instagram, actually. In fact, user experience was, and I hope it still is, important for both Instagram and Facebook. And I remember having this conversation at Dentsu, you know, please be mindful of the creative, of the ad creative, right? I mean, these, you know, the newsfeed are personal spaces that people see their families and friends dining, getting married, having babies, right? So having a bad creative is like you're slamming the door open and going to their houses with your shoes on. And that was really at the core of a community and our ads guideline. We also had a team called Creative Shop, and these were like creative directors hired from top creative agencies to give creative guidance to advertisers. So the ads looked great, they performed, but also for the better experience of the community, right? Ads for Facebook and for Instagram and for many other apps that's, you know, out there in the market now. I mean, ads are part of the user experience too, right? I mean, I used to work very closely with the Creative Shop and provided consultation so the advertisers could quickly learn and adjust depending on the measurement results. Right, so I've talked quite a bit, but I'm going to wrap up. So we covered quite a few things today. The user research for Facebook, you know, first of its kind outside of the US, listening to local voices and how the team was set up to make an impact, you know, on that specific market. And then the different approaches taken by Instagram and Facebook for developing new functions. I probably didn't touch so much on the UX improvement, but that's done through sort of A/B, you know, the constant continuous A/B testing, which I'm sure, you know, you're all very familiar with. And I then concluded by touching on how ads are part of the user experience, and the company invested in Creative Shop and measurement to get these right and influence the advertisers, right? So, we're trying not just to sort of think about the platform, but, think of it as an ecosystem of with the advertisers for the ads as well. But all of this, on the back of it is data and research. And I think that's really the point I wanted to make, that, backed by data through research and measurement. And I think you've heard Emi talk a lot about data-driven UX. And, she's got an article on it on Medium, and I really couldn't agree more to it. So thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Hello. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Oshi-san, and always get inspired by, hearing your research experience. I mean, it's so diverse from Facebook and, from Asia across like Japan and also the US. Like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? So you hear that actually working as a PM at one of the disruptive companies like Facebook, is it something desirable? I don't know, like it might be super challenging and so, competitive. So I don't know, it's your choice, but yeah, pros and cons. You needed to ruthlessly, continuously user research. So yeah, that's the downside to it. And yeah, so we don't have much time, so we'll just open up the floor, for the audience. So for any questions you might have for Oshi-san on the user research, and also any questions about UX design. Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Hello. Okay. So Alicia, what's the okay?
Thank you, Oshima-san, for the presentation. It was really lovely, just like about learning about the user research. But I think the questions I wanted to ask today there's only two. Hopefully, it doesn't take up too much time. But the first one is personally, maybe I could ask for the both of you, like what was like the most memorable user research or you've both ever done in your careers, and why? And also the second one is I wanted to tie into what Emi-san said about desirability, since it seems to be perhaps like a bit difficult to grasp. How if that is the case, like how do you achieve it, and do you think it's possible to achieve like desirability through user research, or is it like a combination of factors that ultimately results to that? So yeah, that's just two.
Thank you, Alicia. That's a thought-provoking question. I think it might better go to Oshie-san. Actually, he's like a seasoned researcher. So yeah, Oshie-san, do you mind answering that question?
Right. That's a very difficult one, because I've pretty much enjoyed all of the research that I've done. And when you work for a research company, you actually work across many different industries. I've done yogurt, I've done ice cream, I've done cheese, I've done cars, I've worked with luxury brands. But I think probably one of the interesting ones that I did, which actually I was going to talk about today, was actually a study I did for Nissan. And it was interesting because it was actually a study around perceived quality, which may not be familiar with you, but when people working in the car industry talk about quality, it's about the speed, the acceleration, the leather seats and whatnot, right? But have that defined by the users, the customers, and also just like identifying how does, which part of the car needs to be at which level in order to make the car look more, have more quality. And that would be things which is more emotional. That would be about related to feelings, like the sound of the door shutting. How high does the boot open? Because all that is related to. So basically, I mean, there are all these like small things that came out of the research, but the real insight was that there's three things, right? When you talk about cars, right? It was about safety, it was about functionality, and it was about excitement, right? So these were sort of the three key insights that were behind all of the things that they said, which I thought was like fascinating. And the additional thing that I learned, and again, was that we did this test in Germany, right, for two different category of cars, right, car owners, sort of the normal car and the luxury car owners. The luxury car owners, what they look for in the car was it's a space outside of their home. So after work, they come back into their car, to drive home. That moment, it's an extension of the house for them. Right? I mean, that's a real insight. So when it's an extension of the house, they want that true comfort. And you want the car to adjust for your needs than you adjusting for the car. So when you actually listen to why, you get these ideas. And once you get to the core of that, right, you get to this, you can, it sort of sparks different ideas because you've got that sort of the core insight. Yeah. And I got to travel to Düsseldorf and drink lots of beer, and that was good. Right. Sorry.
Thank you for your answer. That was really thought-provoking. I really enjoyed that one, especially about like categories and stuff. That was really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of a user research, but I mean, similar to what we do with apps, but with something bigger and something that's more expensive to conduct. But I mean, at the end, it's the same, what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick question, Oshi-san. So when you provide that research, slides, whatever the data, so do you also provide the suggestions for design iteration, product improvement? Just the data inside or suggestions?
Well, we obviously put it in a report, so it's consumable. I mean, just the data in itself is probably useless for all of us. So it's in a digestible manner, and we would probably provide 2 or 3 pages of the key takeaway, and then probably the rest is in the appendix with some detail with photos of the different parts of the car and so on. We can't really make any suggestion on design because we're not designers.
Yeah. I guess that's more my job. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. That's why we have to partner. Yes.
Thank you, Oshi-san. And yeah, feel free to ask more questions too. Actually, it's very hard to get hold of him. He's the head of the UX and CX. So yeah. So what about Aaron? We can go to Aaron and next person, Lek and Uyakan. So Aaron, any questions?
Hello. Yeah. So basically, I just wanted to ask you, how do you formulate or how do you decide which questions to ask the users? So I know you said for Instagram, I think it was, you had to, you went to Osaka and you had to really determine, how to expand and how to get more penetration, I think, in the Japan market. So how do you, I mean, there's a million countless questions you could ask. Like, how do you decide we need to ask these, these questions?
I'm so glad you asked that. I mean, really, I am so happy that you asked that, because at the core of every research that we do, right? At the beginning of every research, we need to identify the objective of the research. What is it that we're trying to get from this study? And what are the actions that we're going to take from this study? These two things, the objective and the key actions, right? And perhaps the third thing I would ask is what's the business objective, right? Business objective, the research objective, and the actions to be taken. Whenever I go into a research, I would definitely clarify these 3. So, I mean, I've had in the past many times when a client comes to us with a brief, with a research objective, but when you start to challenge the business objective, you ask about the business objective, the research objective is actually quite wrong. Wow. And you have to challenge the client. Is this actually really what you want to do? Right? And sometimes the client would hate me because I don't make them look good. But the worst thing that you could get is like you've done the research, you've got the results, but it doesn't answer your business question. Right? I mean, all the time and the money's wasted. Yeah, that's terrible.
I think Emi had a slide that said people don't know what they want. So maybe the business comes to you thinking they know what they want, and they don't know what they want, and you have to help.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, let me
Yeah.
give you an example. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Emi.
Yeah, go ahead, Oshie.
Let me give you an example. I mean, Chanel, right? They had this problem in Hawaii. Their bags weren't selling it so well. And like 80% of the customers in Hawaii are Japanese. So, you know, they said like, there's something wrong with the store design. Can you do some research in Hawaii? It's like, yes, we can go to Hawaii. Brilliant. So we did some desk research. And we just identified that, okay, the business goal is fine. I mean, increase the business in Hawaii, but get the macro trend. People weren't buying these luxury brands anymore, the Japanese people, and especially the people who are going to Hawaii. I mean, they could actually buy, you know, Chanel bags in Don Quixote in those days, right? So obviously there's kind of a macro trend, a decline in Japanese people buying just, I mean, you know, it's a simple stuff. So once you've done all of that, your business, the research question is gonna change, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I haven't sort of really gone into detail about what questions to ask, but I think, you know, once you've defined those things, it probably becomes a bit more intuitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you, Oshie.
Welcome. Yeah, call me Osh.
Thank you, Osh.
Thank you, Osh. Well, I can see that you get enthusiastic whenever you talk about research. So maybe we can have another session for, you know, market and research. I mean, yeah, it's a great thing, you know, to get enthusiastic about what you do. And so next person, Lek Hong.
Hi, Osh. Hi, Emi. Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead with your question. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as you were sharing, Osh, when you were sharing about the difference between Facebook and Instagram and how they pitch ideas, one being the focus on metrics and the other one having the community at the core. So when you have a leader who is focused, well, and I understandably so focused on key metrics tied to the business and pushing for people to pitch ideas based on, you know, whatever is available, like telemetry or user analytics. How, in your case, for example, you mentioned how I think the user base 2x when the user research team in Osaka came up with specific ideas, but sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And so I was wondering if you were in Facebook and you wanted to bring that idea of, say, Instagram's focus on the community form of user research, how would you go about that in like convincing, say, senior leadership that is the way to go?
So, all right, thank you for that. So the question is, in a very data-driven company, how do you go about convincing your senior leadership about getting sort of the more community voice into the design?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't really have an answer to that, to be honest, because I mean, the way it worked at Instagram was like the leader himself really believed in the power of community. It was just more of like a company philosophy, you know, not just about the research, but he was right, you know, the way the company was run, valuing the community. But having said that, I mean, Instagram called it community, Facebook called it users, you know, normal companies call it customers. Customers are at the core of the business, right? I think for any business, right? And listening to the customer, right, is probably, I mean, no one's going to say no to it. Whether it's a qualitative approach, whether it's a quantitative approach, I mean, that's a choice, and that sort of, you can pick which, depending on the objective. And then there's also the data. Okay, data is there. I mean, that's just the result of customer interaction with your platform. That's also important, but you know, you've got to be careful. What you read from the data is limited, and what you do from customer research is also limited. You know, you can probably see what's happening with the data, with the user data, but you don't understand the why behind that data. And that's why you have to sort of dig in with research, like interviews. I mean, that's the way I would use. So I would actually use both, not like one or the other.
Of course.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But thanks for that. I hope I'm not sure if I sort of answered your question, but
oh no, you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did. Sorry, just want to make sure others have a chance to.
And the data is usually readily available, you know, in a very data-driven company, right? Whereas for research, you've got to invest like a few million yen, and that sometimes be your constraint.
Wow, I didn't know it was in that ballpark.
If you, yeah.
Okay, we can go on and on, but yeah, maybe we should give a chance to Jana, Phi, and Terry, and we can wrap up QA session. So Jana, what's your question?
Thank you. Thank you for your great presentation and your time. And I have two questions regarding your explanation when you talked about cars. So I love cars, so thank you for talking about your experience. So UX research, when you did the research between two luxury cars and mass production cars, what kind of measurements did you use during the interview to measure the user experience? And then second is, how did you validate those answers?
Right. Good question. And it also challenges my memory as well. But so let me just talk to you about how we set it up, right? So we had two cars in a huge studio, like a warehouse, right? And that's why this research is actually quite expensive. We had to rent a car, rent 4 cars actually, so because like 2 cars for each segment, and then place it in a warehouse. And we were filming the user as he was like observing the cars. First, we gave them just a sheet of paper with some questions, right? And that would be, you know, and I can't remember what it was, but it's like, it was, you know, just think about the exterior and the interior, how they evaluated that, you know, on a 5-point scale. They probably had like 20 questions, okay? And so they would look around the car and then they would, you know, tick the boxes and whatnot. And we would also film their behavior, right? So obviously, if you like something or if you're intrigued by something, they would spend longer time. Maybe we would just give them free time for like 15 or 20 minutes observing the car and then, you know, answering the questions. Then we came back to a different room and we started the interview so that the person could talk about how they've answered, why they've answered it that way. You know, so comparing to, you know, the 2 cars, you know, we've got the question in the middle, car A, car B, and then 5-point scale on each side. And we would just like have them, you know, narrate what they've done. We would also show the video on the screen, right? Just as, you know, because of it works as a stimulus, right? What were you actually doing here? What were you looking at? How did you feel? Why? So yes, we had some data points, but it was more of a qualitative study to really dig into sort of the insights, as I said. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Are you sure that's it? Okay.
And I actually put a report
more.
for this
Yeah.
because I thought, you know, I could have talked about that as well. Maybe if there's an opportunity, I can sort of run through that as well quickly, if you're keen. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so next person, Phi. Phi, how are you?
Hello. Yeah, so thank you for the session. It's very interesting. So I have one question. So I guess that when you're conducting a user research, it is like a combination of user interviews, A/B testing, and so on. So I wonder if have you like ever encountered a situation when the result of each research are not aligned with each other? For example, if the user research interview says that, well, we need this feature, but the A/B testing result says that, well, user didn't really use this one. So I wonder, how do you design next step, or which result that will you use to shape further strategy?
Yeah, good question. You know what? I've never really combined different research methods in that way. Usually you would probably do one and then another. So something like A/B testing. So let's say, let's pick an example of A/B testing in the core research. Okay. A/B test is done first, and then you try to understand why that's happening with a core research. Or you could do a core research to understand what opportunities there are for, let's say, to develop a new feature. And then you put a new feature out, and then you do the A/B test, right? So I kind of think they don't really conflict, but it's like one is the consequence of the other. I mean, the other thing is that, if it does conflict, I don't really look at it as a conflicting, because qualitative research, for example, is based on, let's say, 10 people or, 24 or something, at the biggest. Whereas quant research, you could be collecting, thousands, or in terms of A/B tests, like millions. Okay. So qualitative, it's not really a representative, but it's just a way to probe into different people's minds. So again, I think I would look at these things quite differently. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your feedback, Oshi. So maybe I skipped some of the slides today because of the time limit, but actually, might have to do with your question. So there is a generative phase in the user research, and there's evaluative phase. But, what do we need A/B testing for? We needed something to validate on. So it's more like the product phase. So when you try to ideate for what will be the product value proposition, and that's more like generative research, it will start with open qualitative interview questions. And from there, you want to get a convergent and then divergent and convergent. So this is the point that you want to conduct A/B testing, because you got very, very, clear validation points there. If it's something like A works or B works, you want to go convergent from that point, more like definitive from that point. So yeah, it has to do with more usability, for usability, A/B testing. So different phases of the product development. Yeah, something like this as well, like A/B testing. It's a sit somewhere here, but you want to go more like a problem framing and discovery, then more like discovery research. But after you have a certain usability to test on, then from there it's more like A/B testing. So it depends on the product phase as well. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And we have
Thank you,
Terry. Yeah, Terry, how are you?
Hi, good. Sorry, Emi, my question is gonna be a research question for Osh. So, Osh, thank you so much for that really great chat. You mentioned that when you start discovery research, my team is actually starting that discovery research this week, and we need 3 things. The first was the business objective, the research objective, and the third, did you say it was key actions?
Yeah.
Could you dive deeper into what that is?
Yeah. So in that example that I showed with Facebook, there are 2 objectives, and I would say there was two actions. One was fixing the product, right? So, we had the engineering resource to fix the product. The other was a communication. So I didn't touch on that deliberately because of time, and I think your interest would be in the product. But one of the things that we did from that research was we made a TV ad. And I think it was one of the first TV ads we did, and I actually, there's another reason I didn't talk about it. It was kind of a flop. So, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. What is the action that's going to be taken from the research? Is it you're going to be fixing a product? Are you going to be, is it something that you're going to, perhaps fine tune your communication strategy? Is it to find, is it to prioritize your features for, your new product and who's going to be working on it? And, if let's say that your expected actions are clear, then, and who's going to be working on that, those people could be invited to these interviews. So they would have the firsthand, knowledge of what's being said.
Right. So is it okay if I share like what my research discussion guide is like, so you can say if that's like a bit weird or not? So the business objective would say reduce plastic waste. That is the company's business objective. This is from my music. Reduce plastic waste. My research objective is to find out why users aren't more engaged. And would you say the key actions is then to increase engagement, or is that like two separate things, or one thing?
So understanding why people aren't engaged, right?
Yeah.
The action is, what are the things that your company is going to be doing to increase engagement? Now, what are some of the options available to you to engage people? Are you going to be running social ads? Are you going to be doing PR? Are you going to be doing, I don't know, like content type of stories? Or are you going to be doing, I don't know, some event?
Right.
These are many different things that you can think of, but is it the communication, or you maybe, trying to fix something and then like get engagement?
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, most research at the end of the day comes into three things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an exploratory thing where you're trying to find an opportunity for your new business, or it's going to be action, right? Like fixing something. It's a product related goal, or it's going to be a communication related goal.
And communication doesn't necessarily mean like content itself, but like how it engages, like interaction wise.
I think of it pretty simply. When I think about communication, it's who, what, and how, and perhaps when. So who's the target for this product? What are you going to tell them? And how are you going to tell them? Who, what, how.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry if my typing was quite loud.
No, not at all. Sorry,
I didn't
Emi.
hear anything. Yeah, no
We didn't
problem.
hear a thing.
So yeah, any more questions, or we can move on to group photo? Group photo, is that right? Okay, so I skipped on a lot of like, user research parts because I want to allocate the part to Oshi-san. So I hope you got the expert over here, and anyone who is interested in like data-driven plus design, the keyword here is a UX design today. So please also, you can check out the YouTube webinar that I gave last year. So yeah, any questions, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, and yeah, just to stay in touch. And yeah, group photo, is that right? Tammei, how's it going?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, we just wanted to take a quick group photo. So whoever is comfortable turning their cameras on, that'll be super great. And I guess Annie, you can give us the count.
Okay.
So that we can all smile.
Make a pose or add a reaction on my count of 3. Okay, I'm gonna take a screenshot. Okay. And make sure to hold your smile because we have 2 slides. Okay.
And make sure you look at the camera, not the screen, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah, I
very
think that
much.
wraps it up today. So have a good night, everyone. Stay in touch.
Running way over time. Sorry about that,
Yeah,
but thank
sorry
you.
about
That was so helpful,
Thank
you
you.
too.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammei, any?
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.